Hey mommies, how are you? So I wanted to kind of talk about something that I talked about recently, which was about which breast should you be breastfeeding on first. If it's your very first time, how do you make the decision of which breast I'm going to use first? And then is there a particular breast that is better for you to kind of nurse on? But we talked about that, and it really doesn't matter. It's kind of all breasts are different, and you'll find that they'll produce milk differently. And sometimes your baby will have a preference for a particular breast. So there isn't really any right or wrong there. But what I did want to mention was about apps, breastfeeding apps, because there's so many apps out there. There seems to be an app for absolutely everything, and there's a bunch of breastfeeding apps to help you keep track. And a lot of the, like when I first had my baby, my first baby, Samuel, when I was at the hospital, they gave me a sheet for me to keep track which breast he had been breastfeeding on, like nursing on, and for how long. And then I was supposed to tick like left, right, so many minutes, and then there was another column for how many times he'd pooped and how many times he'd had a wet diaper, for me to keep track just of how he was eating and gaining weight and stuff. And I do really think that that's important at the beginning, and when you have like a gazillion things to do, and if you have other children, it's even more stuff to do. So it does help you keep track. So I do think it's cool to download some of those apps and use them, especially at the beginning. Also, they can help you like establish a routine, so you can start to see, not right away, but a few months into you having a baby, what are your baby's preferences of like eating and sleeping. And you can kind of sometimes start to see a pattern, so you can start to help your baby adjust and get like into a routine, and that's a good thing to do. The only thing that I would say is just be really careful with that, because what I don't like about that, and what I was kind of like confused about when I was given this sheet at the hospital, was that you need to time breastfeeding, and that's really something that you don't want to do, and you don't want to get into the habit of doing. I know it's really easy, especially at the beginning when you're not used to it. But in those breastfeeding apps, like it tells you like how long did the baby nurse on this side, how long did it nurse on the other side. So that's kind of good if you want to use that, just to keep track, like, you know, does your baby have a preference for a particular breast, or is he nursing more on one side than the other? But don't use it to time, like that your baby needs to be nursing X amount of minutes on one side or X amount of minutes on the other side. Do not use it for that, because you really shouldn't be nursing that way, because there's no way of knowing how much your baby is intaking in regards to milk. So the best thing to do is just let your baby nurse on demand. I do think it's a good idea to turn your breast, especially at the beginning, because your baby is not going to be draining out or emptying both breasts in one sitting. So usually you offer one. Once you know that you feel that your breast is empty, you offer the other one. And if the baby hasn't, doesn't want to take it, then that's it. You would just use that breast the next time that you're going to breastfeed your baby. So I just wanted to mention that about apps, because I do think that they're really cool. And there's a bunch of really cool apps out there that I use at the beginning, and they help you also keep track of the wet diapers and stuff like that, because those are all questions that your pediatrician is going to want to know and ask. So I just wanted to really make that point about the breastfeeding apps, because I do think that they're cool to use, but I just think you have to be careful how you use them, and also understand that you should not be timing your breastfeeding sessions. It should be breastfeeding on demand. And sometimes you'll find it depends also on so many factors in regards to whether your baby was born very small or very big, how sleepy your baby is, like if your baby had jaundice. This I'm talking about the newborn stage, like right away in the first like 30 days. So sometimes your baby will nurse more than others, but there's really no way of knowing at the beginning. So you should not be timing your baby at all. I've had moms say, oh my God, my baby like nurses on one breast for like an hour and a half. Is that normal? Yeah, that's really normal. Maybe at the beginning of the breastfeeding session, he was just snacking, and maybe towards the end, then he had the rest of the meal. So, or maybe he's just suckling for comfort. So there's so many things and so many factors that go into account that there is really no reason for you to be timing your nursing sessions. And the more you start to kind of like get the feel of that, the more relaxed you'll be, and you will focus more that your baby's feeding and that they're latching well and that they're suckling, and you're looking more at their body language and see how they're taking milk than looking at the clock. The clock really will not tell you anything. And I know there's a lot of nurses at the hospital especially that will tell you, oh no, he should be at least breastfeeding on one breast for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. There really isn't like a right amount of time that you know that your baby's had a full feed. The best thing to do is just follow your baby's cues, see if they're satisfied. If not, burp him a little bit and then try again later. So those are the things that you should be doing. But it is good to have the app to help you along, because there's so many different things that you're doing. It'll help you keep track. And if you mommies use a particular app that you liked, that you thought was cool, or that you thought was helpful, please in the comments below, send us the name of the app so we can download it, and let us know what your experience was using apps, if you thought that was helpful, or if it was a waste of time, or if you just kept track, doing notes or something. Really interesting to see how mommies handle that at the beginning of breastfeeding, when you have so many things to take into account and to consider. Okay, thank you, mommies. Bye. Isaac is seeing himself on the screen. That's why he's like super excited every time I do any gestures or movements. There he goes. Bye.